Hey guys, what's going on? Emmanuel here, back to another tutorial today. Today we are actually going to build our first React project. Now we've actually learned a lot in React. We've learned how to render lists in React, how to work with components in React, how to make use of the useState hook in a functional component in React, that's how to manage state in a functional component. Now it's time for us to actually put those knowledge together and actually build something with it. Now in my screen right now, you see I have this basic digital calculator right here. Now it's a very basic calculator. Even I would not advise you to put this project in your portfolio. The importance of this project right now is to actually understand all we've learned so far in this channel and actually build something with those knowledge. Now it's a very simple application. It's just a calculator that does basic mathematical operations. Here I can say 4 times 6, then it's going to give me 24. Then I can clear up my inputs. Then I can also come and say 5.2 multiplied by 3 is going to give me an output of 15.60000. I can also make use of a division operator. I'm going to clear that. I'm going to say 7 divided by 8 is obviously going to give me a decimal number. Then I can also clear that. Then I can say, then I'm going to say 10 divided by 2, which is 5. Now this digital calculator looks very simple, right? But there's actually a lot going on here. We are making use of the useState hook in React to manage the state in this component. We are making use of the map method in JavaScript to look through all these buttons right here. Then we are making use of conditional styling in React.js to actually style these buttons. Now if you are excited about this tutorial, give this video a thumbs up and leave a comment below. It's going to help the YouTube algorithm push this content to more people who are going to find it helpful. And if you've not subscribed, ensure you do that and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss my next React tutorial. So we are basically going to be starting this project from absolute scratch. So the first thing we are going to do is actually create a new React project. Right now I'm in the Git official website, so I'm going to click on get started. It's going to bring me right here, so I'm going to scroll down. And you can see right here the installation guide, npm create vit at latest. Now I already made a tutorial on how to create a new React project in 2025. If you'd like to check out that tutorial guide, I'm going to leave a link to that in the description below. So I'm going to copy this command right here, npm create vit at latest. I'm going to go to my PowerShell. I'll zoom that out. Then I'm going to say cd into my React folder. Then I want to paste that command here. Mind you, this command is not going to work if you don't have Node installed in your computer. So I'm going to click on enter. Now this is going to prompt up the name of our project. So I'm going to say calculator app. Click on enter. Then it's going to ask which framework we are planning on using. We are planning on using React. Then it's going to ask us which variant we want to work with. I'll say JavaScript plus SWC. Now our project is created. I'm just going to seed into the calculator app folder. Calculator app. Enter. Then I'm going to open this project in my Visual Studio Code. To do that, I'm going to say code dot. Now that we have our project open inside our Visual Studio Code, now the next thing we are going to do is actually run our npm install to install all our dependencies. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to say terminal, new terminal. Then npm install. And this is going to install all the dependency inside our node modules. And that took a while, but our packages have been installed. You can see right here our node modules, we see all our packages we are going to be needing for our application has been installed. And there's one more package I'm going to be installing from the React library, which is called maths.js. This is what I'm going to be using to do all our calculations in our application. I'm going to say npm install maths.js. Now our maths.js package has been installed. Now to check if your maths.js package has been installed or check other packages you are working with in your React application, you're going to go to your package.json file. Now right here in your package.json file, you're going to see all the dependencies you are working with. You can see right here we have maths.js, React, React DOM, and your dev dependencies. I'm going to get rid of that. Now the next step is to actually run this application. So I'm going to say npm run dev. And when I run the application and follow this localhost port 5173 link, you can see our React application is running perfectly. I'm going to close this off because I'm not going to be needing the terminal for a while. Then I'm going to head over to my src, then my app.js file. Now what I want to do right now is just get rid of all the code in my app.js file. Now after doing that, I just want to put an h1 tag here and say hello everybody. When I save that, you can see right here we have our text hello everybody. So I'm going to get rid of this. Don't need this right now. I'm going to get rid of this. Then I'm going to go to my app.css file and just get rid of all the styling from the default React application. And go to my index.css, and also if I don't really need this index.css right now, so I'm going to delete this off. Yeah, move to cycle. Alright, now I've gotten rid of everything I'm not going to need for this project. Now to start adding the things we actually need. Now to better organize our code, I'm going to create a folder right here. I'm going to call this folder components. This is where I'm going to keep all the components I'm going to be working with in this application. Then I'm going to create a component. I'm going to call this component calculator.jsx. Now I'm going to make use of RFC in the React snippet to create a React functional component. RFC, then I'll create a React functional component. Then in my app.js file, I'm just going to get rid of this h1 text right here. Then I'm going to call on calculator component. I want to save that. You can see our calculator component is right here on the web page. Let me zoom that out. Yeah. I'm going to get rid of this text right here. Then I'm going to say this div is going to have a class name of calculator. Then it's going to have another div which is going to have a class of display. This is going to be the display of our calculator. Then it's going to have another div of buttons. This is going to be the buttons of our calculator. For this display right now, I just want it to display 0 for now. Now when I save that, you can see right now in our web page we have 0. Now let's move to our buttons. Now right here, I can come here, I'll say button. Then I can add 1. I can come here, I'll say button, I'll say 2. Then come down, then I'll say 3. I can actually do this, but in reality, this is not actually ideal. Because it's like I'm repeating myself. I'm going to be writing button, and adding all the button value, including plus and all the operators. So eventually, I'm going to have lots of button tags in my calculator.js file. Now in reality, that's not actually best practice. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to create an array of these values. I'm going to map through those array values and output them as a button. Let's do that. So I'm going to get rid of these buttons right here. I'm going to just make use of just one button. When I save that, you can see right now I just have one button right here. So I'm going to come up here. Then I'm going to say const buttons is equals to an array of buttons. So first, the values I'm going to add for, I'm going to say 9. Then I'm going to say 8. Then I'm going to say 7. Then I'm going to pass in the division operator. Then I'm going to come down there. Then now this is actually going to take some time. So I'm just going to return when I'm done adding all the values to the array. Alright, I'm back and I've added all the values I'm going to be needing for my buttons right here. We have 7, 8, 9. The division operator, 4, 5, 6, the multiplication operator, 1, 2, 3, the subtraction operator, 0 dot equals to operator, the plus operator, and the C for clear button. So the next thing I'm going to do is that I'm going to map through this array. Now every time I loop through this array, I want to output these values as a button. So I'm going to come over here. I'm going to say buttons dot map. Then I'm going to call it the button. Then I'm going to get the index number of each of the button in the array. Then I just want to say return this button right here. So every time I map through the array, I want to return a button. And this button is going to have the value of the array I'm mapping through. So I'm going to say output a button right here. And when I save that, you can see right now we have our button in the UI. 7, 8, 9, divide and stuff. We have all our buttons in the UI. I guess you'd agree that this is actually a lot cleaner than having to write lots of buttons right here, button right here in our UI. We just create an array of the values you want to output to our buttons, then we just loop through those values, and every time we loop through, we're just going to output one of those values as a button. Now we are not done yet. Now, like I said in some of my previous React tutorials, when you are working with lists in React.js, you have to specify a key. Normally, the key is going to be the ID of the list you are working with, the unique ID you are getting from the database, like the unique ID of the list of items you are getting from the database. Each of them are going to have a unique ID 1, 2, 3, 4. But in this case, these buttons or these numbers, they don't have a unique ID. They only have index numbers right here. And what are index numbers in JavaScript? Right now, 7 is an index of 0, 8 is an index of 1, like that, till it gets to the C value. Now, normally, it's not best practice to actually use index number as the key of a list. Why? Because when the element gets deleted off the array, React gets confused on how to track that item. So since this list of array are not going to be deleted, they're actually buttons for our UI. They are not going to be deleted, so we can make use of the index number as the key. So I'm going to come down here. I'm going to say this button is going to take a key, and the key is going to be the index. Let me close this up so we can see it properly. Now, this is actually best practice in React because you always have to provide a key. The reason for that is that so that React would be happy and React can keep track of these items. Now, our calculator is looking very, very ugly right now. So the next thing we're going to do is actually introducing some CSS to make our calculator look more presentable. Now, I'm going to go to my app.css file. I'm going to say .calculator. I'm basically not teaching CSS in this tutorial, so I'm just going to paste the CSS styles right here. Now, if you are coding along in this tutorial and you want to follow up with what I'm doing, I'm going to leave a link to this project on GitHub. Now, in that repo, you're going to find all the CSS you need to actually follow along with this tutorial. Alright, now I've pasted the CSS to this calculator in my app.css. Now, when I save that, you can see right here, our calculator is looking so good. But our buttons are obviously not working yet. Now, when I scroll down in my style.css right here, you can see right here that in my style.css, I have this class right here, .clear, which is kind of red. Then I have this class right here, .equals, which has the background of some kind of green. Then up here, I have another class of .operator, which has kind of a yellow color. What I'm doing is that I'm giving this C its own color different from these other ones. That's how a basic calculator would be. The C is going to have a different color. Then the operators are going to have different button color. Then the equals to operator is also going to have a different color. So let's go and apply those styles in our React.js application. So I'm going to head over to my calculator.js file. I'm going to scroll down. Then I'm going to say I want this button to have a class name of clear. And when I save that, you can see right now that all our buttons are not kind of red, but we just want only the C button to have a color of red. And we want these other operators to have a color of yellow. Now, how do we solve this problem? Now, we solve this by using something called conditional styling. So I'm going to teach you how to do that. First of all, I'm going to bring this down. Then I'm going to bring this down. And also this down. Then I'm going to take this off. Then I'm going to put in these squiggly brackets right here. Then I'm going to say if the value of this button, now I'm using value. I think it makes sense to just make this value instead. That's the button value. Then instead of outputting the button, I'm just going to say the value. This is actually a better naming convention. So I'm going to say if the value is equivalent to C, then I want it to have a class name of clear. Else, I don't want it to have that class name. So when I save that, you can see right now that all our buttons are black in color except from this C button, which stands for clear. So what I'm doing right here is that before I add the class name, I'm checking first with ternary operator that the value I'm actually outputting this time around, I'm outputting when I'm mapping through them. If the value is equals to C, which is this C right here, then it's going to have a class of clear. Hence, it's not going to have any class. So right here, you can see that only this C button has a class of clear. But we are not done yet. We want this equals to button to have something like a green color. Now, how do we do that? So I'm going to come over and I'm going to get rid of this. Now, this is kind of an S if. So I'm going to say value, S if the value is equivalent to this equals to right here. Then I'm going to say I want it to have a class of equals. S don't have any class. And when I save that, you can see right now that our equals to button is green and our C for clear button is kind of red. We are not done yet. We want to make all these buttons right here yellow so we can differentiate between the buttons that are operators and the buttons that are just basically values. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to get rid of this. Then it's just the same thing as if. Now this is actually kind of tricky because this one we are not working with one value, so we cannot use the equality operator to check if that's the value. So what we can do here is actually create an array and check if the values we are mapping through is inside that array. So right now I'm going to create an array. I'm going to say multiplication, then division, then subtraction, then addition. Now I'm going to make use of the dot includes in JavaScript. Dot includes value. Then I'm going to say have a class of operator. Sorry, I'm not spelling my operator right. Operator. Then S don't have any class. And when I save that, you can see right now all our operators have a color of yellow. And let me actually break down what I'm doing here. Now I'm saying if the value is equals to C, which means it's going to have a class of clear. S if the value is equals to, then it's going to have a class of equals. S, then I'm creating an array of all the operators. Then I'm checking if the value, the button I'm outputting to the UI, value I'm actually looping through at that given time is included in this array right here. If the value is included in this array, in this case, multiplication, division, subtraction, and addition, then it's going to have a class of operator which is going to make it yellow. I'm going to format this document. And yeah. Now, so far, everything has been going fine. So let's actually start working on the logic of our calculator. Now, before we do that, I just want to say if you've not subscribed, ensure you do that and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss my next React tutorials. So the next thing I'm going to do is actually create a state that's going to be capturing all my inputs. So I'm going to come down here. I'm going to say const input, then set my input is equals to useState. Then the default value is obviously going to be an empty string. And the next thing I'm going to do right now is actually add an event handler to my button. So I'm going to come down here. I'm going to say on click. I want to run a function called handle click. And each time I'm running this function, I want to pass the value. Like, for example, now if I click on 7, the value that this handle click is going to take is going to be 7. If I click on equals to, the value is going to take is going to be the equals to value. So I'm going to pass in the value right here. Then I'm going to go up and actually create that function. Then I'm going to come up here. Then I'm going to say function handle click. Then it's going to take that value I just passed to it. I can call it anything, but I'm just going to call it value. Then first of all, let's just log this value to the console. Console.log the value. Now in my console, when I click on the button 7 gets logged to our console. When I click on clear, the C value gets logged to our console. When I click on 5 gets logged to our console. Now you can see right now we're actually getting the values from our click event. Now let's actually start making use of these values in our calculator. So the first thing I'm going to do is actually check if the button I'm clicking on is actually the clear button. If the value I clicked on is the clear button, I just want to set the calculator back to 0, set it back to 0. That's clear all my inputs. So I'm going to check. I'm going to say if value is equivalent to the C, then I want to set my inputs back to an empty string. Sorry. Then I want to come down here to my display. Then instead of just outputting 0 here, Then I'm going to output the value of my input. It's going to be my input value. Then when my input is an empty string, which means it doesn't have a value, then I want to output 0. I'm going to save that. Now, since my input doesn't have any value, it's going to display 0. If I come up and actually add 45 here and save that, you can see right here we have 45 in our display. That's how it's going to work. When the input is an empty string, then it's going to display 0. Then when the input has a value, the value is going to be displayed to the UI. Let's get rid of this 45. Save that. You can see right now we have 0 in our UI. Then I'm going to come back here. Then I'm going to say s if the value, that is the button I'm clicking on, is equivalent to this equals to, which means I'm trying to get the result of an operation. So I'm going to come here. Then I'm going to say, I'm just going to write a comment here for now. This is where I'm going to run the math operation. Then I'm going to say s set the input previous value. Then I'm going to say previous value, then concatenate that previous value to the value. I'm going to save that. Then when I come back to my calculator, you can see right here, when I click on 5, you can see right here it's been clicked on. When I click on 1, it's been added. Now what I'm doing right here is I'm saying if the button I clicked on is equivalent to C, then I'm going to clear all my inputs. As if it's equals to this operator right here, then I'm going to actually run an operation, but I've not worked on that code now. Then else, if it's not equals to this C value, then if it's not equals to this equal to value, then what is going to happen is that if I click on 1 right here, then I click on 2, what's happening is that this 1 gets concatenated to the next value I'm clicking on. Then if I use multiplication, it gets concatenated to that previous value. Now let me explain again. Right now, if I click on 4 in this calculator, then I click on 5, what's happening is that 4 is the previous value. So I'm going to set the input to the previous value, which is 4, previous value, and I'm going to concatenate that previous value to the next value I just pressed 5, which means if I press 2 now, 2 is going to get concatenated to 45 right here. So that's what's happening. That's what I'm doing right here. Then as usual, when I press on the clear button, it's going to set our input to an empty string. Now, when our input is an empty string, it's going to display 0 in our UI. So I'm going to say clear. Then you can see we have 0 in our UI. Now let's actually work on this our math operation. First of all, I'm going to import our evaluation from math.js. That's why I installed math.js. So I'm going to come up here. Then I'm going to say import evaluate from math.js. Then here, I'm going to say I'm going to make use of a try catch block. Then when our calculator have an error, I'm going to set my input to error. Then in here, I can say const results is equals to evaluate the input. That's whatever is in our input. If you have 1 plus 2 in our input, I want to evaluate the result. 1 plus 2 is going to be 2. So I'm going to evaluate that, evaluate the value in our input, then convert it back to a string, because this evaluate is going to return a number, but I want it to be a string. I'm going to convert it back to a string. Then I'm going to set my input to results. Now let's actually test our calculator. So I'm going to say 1 plus 2 is equals to 3. Now what's happening is that math.js is actually evaluating that input, converting it back to a string. Then I'm setting my input to the result. Let me clear that and say 5 multiplied by 6 is equals to 30. It's rainy season now, our calculator is working. Then 7 divided by 9, 0.777. Everything is working perfectly. Now let's actually test if our try catch block is working. Let's actually put in an input that's going to return an error. Right now I'm going to say dot times 6. Dots cannot multiply 6 obviously. Then when I say equals to, it's going to throw an error. I'm going to clear that. Then I'm going to say dot divided by 9 still going to throw an error, a calculator error. Then 7 minus 5, then we have 2. And that's it. We've built a digital calculator using React.js. Now, if you enjoyed this tutorial, give this video a big thumbs up and leave a random comment below. It's going to help the YouTube algorithm push this tutorial to more people who are going to find it useful. And if you've not subscribed, ensure you do that and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss my next React tutorial. I'll see you in the next video.